Hello, my name is Brian Lewis and I'm an instructor with J10S. Today we're going to talk about emergency Mayday procedures. But if you have had a near miss or an accident, please pause the video, discuss the near miss or the accident, anything that you can do to correct the situation, and then when you're ready to continue the presentation, simply press play again. Like I said, today we're going to talk about emergency Mayday procedures, and this is an important thing, hopefully, that never has to be used, but in an emergency situation, a life threatening situation, where we have to make sure that every second counts to preserve life, it's important to think about what to do and how to respond correctly. So, our objective is to make sure that everyone's comfortable, that should an emergency life threatening situation arise, that there's no delay in calling 911, to contacting supervisors, managers, other crew members, getting them involved so that we can be efficient and try to preserve life as much as we can. To make sure you declare Mayday as soon as you can, or you think that there's a trouble. And later we're going to talk about the acronym LUNAR, what it stands for, and how it can help us respond. I'm going to also say now, in addition to all of this, to encourage people, if you do not have a formal job briefing process, to get one. It is integral to making this run smoothly as possible. Now, when we talk about recognizing a Mayday situation, it's really important that we realize it's typically a life threatening situation where someone has been injured or disabled, someone has been separated from the crew, someone may be trapped or entangled and needs rescuing, or any life threatening condition that you cannot resolve quickly. It's important that you use your cell phone or two-way radio to call for help. I'm going to say this multiple times probably, but it's important in these situations that we each play out our role. Effectively, we're going to have to walk and chew gum at the same time. Someone may be calling 911. Someone may be using the winch to remove a person from a confined space or a permit required confined space. Someone may be trying to flag down emergency personnel. Someone may be getting ready to perform CPR. Other crews may be responding as promptly as they can. So, when it's important that we recognize what a Mayday situation is, and it's also important that we have a clearly defined idea of what needs to happen and that people are going to respond. Walk and chew gum at the same time. So seconds count. And because seconds count when we're trying to preserve a person's life, the acronym LUNAR comes into play here. And so when you call the 911 operator or you contact someone through two-way radio, it's so important that we practice active talking and realize the person on the other end is going to practice active listening. So in active talking, we have to communicate clearly, and because we're going to have a lot of adrenaline pumping through our bodies, heart rate, and all this stuff's going on, that we enunciate correctly, we speak clearly, we make sure everybody understands, one, where we're located at, emergency 911 address, what unit, name, air, resources, what resources we have, what resources are needed. So location, it's always first after you call for a Mayday in an emergency situation. You have to be very precise. This is where a formal job briefing comes into play and is very good to have. You can give the emergency 911 address, GPS coordinates. If you're not exactly at the emergency 911 address, You have to be prepared to give directions beyond that 911 address. You have to be prepared to have someone go down to wherever the nearest 911 address is and flag down emergency personnel, other crews that may be responding to help to the location. Seconds matter when we're trying to preserve life. Having a precise location so that rescue personnel, so that emergency personnel, EMTs, paramedics, not wasting seconds trying to find your location is really important. So, precision, making sure people understand that, speaking slowly so that we can get this on the first go around is important. It's really important. We want to make sure we do that. So, lunar, first one's L, location, be precise. It's also important that we tell people what unit we're with, whether it's the truck number, whether it's the crew foreman's name, what other designation you may have for the unit. It lets people know who's on that unit. It lets people know information on how to respond. So you want to make sure that you let people know what you're doing there, whether you're there working on the water, whether you're there working on sewer, they're working on gas, electric, or maybe some other project that's going on. It's really important that people have an understanding of where you're at, what you're doing, and so that way they have a good way to get to you the resources that you need. The resources that you need. So make sure you do that. There again, location is always the first thing that's given. The second thing that's given is you identify the crew or the unit, truck number, however you want to describe that, so that people know who they're responding to and what help, gives them an idea of what help they need to bring. Okay? So keep those things in mind. The third thing that we want to talk about that's good information is the name. It will allow people responding to know exactly who they're looking for. If someone has gone missing or they're trapped, that sort of information is really crucial. It's really critical, especially if you're doing a job where there's multiple units. It allows people that close by to help and respond. The only thing I need to caution people in what you need to think about as an organization is if you're using analog equipment that the public can hear what's going on, the person that is hurt, the victim, you want to be careful about putting that out in the public because people have scanners, they listen. People like to be first on social media. We want to be respectful of anyone that's hurt, anyone that's sick, anyone that's in a life-threatening situation. We want to be also respectful of their families. So we want to be careful. This needs to be a discussion had internally, how you approach that. Most cell phones, if not all cell phones today, tend to be digital, and you don't have to worry about that information being intercepted so much by the public. Just be careful. Air supply, we're really talking about the conditions at the site and what goes along with the type of work you're doing. Example would be, and what's really important for responding personnel, emergency response personnel, rescue personnel, is it a low oxygen level situation? Not only is it important for them to know the precise location so they do not have to hunt to find the spot where the emergency is happening, it's absolutely imperative that they be able to prepare as much as they can, understand what they're coming into as much as they can. If someone is in a deficient oxygen kind of atmosphere, low oxygen atmosphere below 19.5%, they know if they're going to be doing the rescue, they need their SCBAs, right? So those things are important. It's also important if say, the carbon monoxide alarm went off, or the hydrogen sulfide or the lower explosive limit alarms go off. There again, someone's calling using a radio to get that information to rescue people. It's important that other people, as long as they're able to do a non-manned rescue, that they can get that person out or start to get them person out. When we talk about the R in lunar, we're talking about resources that are both on site and resources that are needed. So you need to describe the work being done. You need to describe if the person, say in a permit required confined space, has been rescued using a winch and a tripod, for example, whether they are responsive, non responsive, do they have a pulse, are they breathing? So it's important to describe the job that's being done. And if it's a rescue type situation, it helps get people to understand what resources are needed at the site. So if it's a rescue situation for trenching and excavation or a permit required confined space, emergency personnel know what they need to bring, can react as quickly as possible, right? These are important things. Lunar's a really good acronym to use for this situation, right? So keep that in mind. And it's important to let people know where you are, all the information that Lunar contains, and the resources that you have, and the resources that you need to get there to get someone's life preserved, right? We want to preserve life, and seconds count. An example might be that you would say Mayday, 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 give the location, in this case 123 Bell Eagle Road Sewer Lift Station, give your unit number, Track 23, Water Sewer Department, the name if it's appropriate, like in this case John Smith, air conditions or the conditions at the site would be like a low O2 alarm sounded or LEL alarm activated. If the worker is unresponsive, if they have been rescued, if CPR is in progress, all these things are important. And then you end with Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Now, it's not important that you use Mayday. You can use code red, you can use code 99, you can make up any code word that you want to use. What is vital, though, is that everyone knows and understands what that code you're calling means. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday is something that has been traditionally used, but if you feel like code red or code 99 or whatever designation you want to use is more appropriate, just make sure everybody knows what that means. Make sure everyone has trained and educated on that. So, what do you do after calling a Mayday? Well, it's really important. Like I said before, you have a lot of adrenaline, probably an increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. It is really important to remain as calm and as clear thinking as possibly can. But because of those conditions, adrenaline and blood pressure and heart rate, it's important to make as many decisions as you can before you're faced with an emergency situation. And it's important to go over in your mind and to practice in some regards how you're going to respond, who you're going to call, who's going to be doing the 911 call, who's going to be operating the winch on the tripod, and who's going to get ready to do CPR, how you're going to rotate doing CPR until someone gets there to relieve you from doing CPR, is send someone to get an AED if one's available. All these things are important. Emergency breathing along with the chest compressions. in CPR trying to preserve life, that you do those things in the way that you've been trained. Quality chest compressions are absolutely needed to preserve life, right? Do not go rescue someone unless you are trained in rescue and have the appropriate equipment. Just straightforward. Don't do that. You make a tragedy worse. So, in summary, follow your standard operating procedures, the processes that have been put in place when you need to activate emergency services. Call a Mayday. Someone's life's on the line. We want to preserve life. It's important that we recognize what a Mayday situation is and not delay that call. Seconds matter. And it's also important that you practice active communication, active talking, and active listening. Realize that you're going to have to be very clear and precise. It's important that we take a deep breath, make sure that when we give information, we give it out so that it's understandable to the person who's receiving it. Don't be upset when the person on the other end practices active listening and in turn ask you to repeat that information. If you don't get that information correct on the front end, it causes everything to be delayed. And those seconds might mean the difference between someone living and dying. And we want people to live. We want to preserve that life. So keep that in mind and please realize, as difficult as it is, we must remain calm and do our jobs, right? So I want to say thank you for this paying attention to this presentation. If you have any suggestions or any questions, please do not hesitate to contact your JTNS instructor. If they do not know the answer, they will do their very best to find that answer for you. So please make use of the resources available to you. I cannot emphasize enough. Hopefully, you'll never have to call Mayday, but a little bit of preparation will go a long way if you have to. Thank you once again. Have a great day.